Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the 45th episode of the SuperNova Show. And I am your host, Colton Roberts. And yeah, this is going to be a good show. Well, not last week. I guess it's now been like a week and a half since we had a show, but we had Mr. Thomas Harper on. That was a lot of fun. There were so many things I forgot to talk to him about that I meant to talk to him about, but guess what? He'll be back in like 10 weeks. So, but yeah, today we're going to do some movie trivia report, talk about Multiplex and all of their stuff that they had going on this week. Then we're going to do Hawkeye episode 5 discussion and predictions for the season finale, which will air tomorrow or tonight if you're one of those people that like to stay up till midnight or 3 a.m. on the East Coast. I am not one of those people, but that's okay. I have kids and a pregnant wife, and she would absolutely be so mad. I love you. You're probably watching at some point, but so that's what. And then of course, Spider-Man: No Way Home spoiler review. I'm saying it now. I'm going to say it later. Spoiler review. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Do that. But yes, I have with me today, I got our main man over here, Mr. Robert Kastner. Hey, Robert.
Hola.
Yes.
I don't know how they would say it in Tonga? Filipino? I don't know. I don't know how to say it, so I'm not going to. But hola. How are you doing today, buddy?
Can't complain. It's been a pretty good week. All things considered, we had a small film. You may have heard of it. It's the third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, so you may have heard of that.
I don't know.
If you did, that's understandable. That happens.
What's that a reference to? What are you talking about?
Oh, I was just making. It's not a small indie film.
Oh well, we don't get small indie films out here, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So it's been a very interesting week, if I do say so myself. Of course, got the holidays coming up. So that's
how is that prep going for you?
It's going well. I folded some, or I wrapped some presents, which of course not the best. My wife did most of it because she does not approve of my wrapping style.
Why? I mean, YouTube can teach you all you need to know about wrapping. It's wonderful.
Yeah, but I'm not very concise, apparently. I just do stuff. It works for me, but apparently it does not work for everyone else. So we just don't go with it.
So you don't measure the paper, you're saying, in order to make sure that it is...
No, yeah, I just get how much I think I'm gonna get. Hopefully it's more. Most of the time it's more. And then I just have to fold the extra and wrap it up real and maybe overlay it some. But it happens.
Okay. I mean that's a means, but if your wife is willing to do the majority of it. I mean, my wife did the majority of ours, but I sometimes like wrapping presents. Sometimes it's very therapeutic. It's one of those things you can kind of lose yourself in. Other times it's just a real time suck.
Yep. I agree, but yeah, most of that was done today. It's good. Hopefully the next 4 days go over well.
You have Christmas lights up?
Yep. Yeah, we've had that up since a little bit after Thanksgiving because I'm not one of those crazy people. I know there's a house that's probably 10 minutes away from my house that they have Halloween lights all through October. They take like 2 weeks off in November, and then they put Christmas lights up from mid-November till January 1st. And I'm like, one, your power bill is crazy because they have them blaring all night, even when they're asleep. Yeah, like it's insane. But hey,
I think it's really disrespectful to Thanksgiving to do that.
Yeah.
Personally. That's what I think. But that's good. It sounds like everything's pretty much prepped. I mean, it should be. It's 4 days till Christmas, for Christ's sake. But that sounds good. It's been a good week for me. Short week. I've had short weeks basically the last 5 weeks as I've been using PTO that I do not get to accrue and cross over to next year. So I'm just trying to get through as much of it as possible. And thus I've had not full work weeks. Basically the last 6 weeks of my year are not full work weeks, which is great. I really enjoy that. Otherwise, just been watching stuff, enjoying the content that has been put in front of my eyes, and I'm happy that we will get to discuss said content.
Yeah. Yes. So let's go ahead and we'll move on to the movie trivia report. Now that I have shared all the things that I need to share on all the social medias, I can finally be like 100% actually dedicated to the show now. So yeah, well, like halfway through like some of our conversations, I was doing something and I'd be like, yep, and I'd be like, I didn't answer that question, so I'm gonna go back.
No, you didn't. And you were cutting out a little bit, so I was trying to context clues exactly what you were saying. But
yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah. So Multiplex had their big
two events. They had 2 events, I think, since we last talked.
Yeah, because I think 2 Fridays ago, or 2 Fridays ago when we actually did the show, we had Thomas, so we didn't talk about we talked about Spectacular and stuff, but we didn't really do like fan league stuff because it had been posted that day.
Yeah.
Right. So we didn't want to like accidentally spoil stuff as it was, but we were cool with spoiling Spectacular. It was also being posted that day.
Well,
but hey, it's fine.
People had already watched it, So they had the final act.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, and then they had Game of Factions last week. If you want a quick rundown of those, we certainly can.
Yes. So I'm trying to think. I know
I have the lineups up, so we can go through them one by one.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so each video, they had 3 videos for each event divided, so it's like 6 hours of content in each case. For the final act 2 weeks ago, the first one was they did Nazario and Mike, the video store or Blockbuster Video, depending on Hollywood Video, depending on which day you catch them on, would run a activity on Mondays called Something Different, which was like 2X Trivia Night. It kind of usurped that, basically. Nick stopped doing 2X Trivia Night on Sundays, and this sort of took it over on Mondays in conjunction with Miscellaneous. And the first one was just this big Something's Different event with teams. I took part in it. It was per faction. Didn't count for Game of Factions, but we each had a team per faction. And we actually ended up winning, Bill and I, mostly on the strength of Bill knowing crazy ass movies at the end. So that had no context for anything, honestly. Then the other part of that first video was the fan zone debate. That's their version of debate that they have in Multiplex, where they combine Warzone and fandom, and there's categories from each. They had the championship match for that, which was Kirk, who had just taken the title from Jacoby, Schmodown Zone Jacoby, and he won a tournament, and he was playing Nazario, and Kirk won via knockout, basically, because they didn't have to go to sudden death. It was pretty much a steamroll, even though if you watch that, it's much like most matches you watch where things end up being the results not very close, but in the context of the actual match was fairly interesting. And I think Kirk and Nazario have nice corresponding divergent styles, how it is that they approach things. Nazario had a bit where he wore a different hat for each debate that they had, which I thought was a fun bit. But Kirk ended up blowing that out. Do you have any thoughts on either of those two? I don't know if you watched either of those.
Yeah, I did not watch either of those.
Okay.
I watched.
So you're saying you're not a multiplex shill?
No. Yeah, like I watched the your match.
Yes.
Then I watched the Warzone title match, the singles title.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah.
There were technically two of them.
Yeah. I didn't want to go ahead and spoil that.
No.
Part was like known knowledge, but and then I watched the fandom singles title,
which was great, which we'll also talk about.
The Warzone teams match.
Gotcha. So you watched videos 2 and 3.
Yep.
Not 1. That's fine. Video 1's kind of like the appetizer, the aperitif. You know, it's to get your palate wet, basically. It's to get some moisture on your tongue so you can get prepared for the main course.
Hey, we have someone who commented. So Garth McMurray says Bill's unique movie taste has been paying off in many matches lately.
That is absolutely the case, Garth. I appreciate us having actual comments on this. This is wonderful. Yeah. Yes, that is absolutely the case. We'll dive into that as well, because he really set us up. That was nice foreshadowing, Garth. Thank you. Yes. So we move into part 2. Part 2 starts with an unfortunate match, which is the fandom team's title match that I took a part of, which was a rematch. It was Dummies versus Knights of Ren. Knights of Ren, as was to be expected, basically stomped over everybody in that tournament so they could get 4 extra wins. And they came into our match. What were they? 13-1? 14-1. They were 14-1.
Yeah.
Jake and I came in. For context purposes, that was filmed about a month ago. As you will get to later on in this, and as we talk about other trivia stuff, Jake and I were had our attention focused across many different planes of things. When they filmed that match that week, I had filmed the tournament final against Kelly and Antal. So I only technically had 5 days to do my deep cuts for fandom, which meant I had to watch and deep cut a movie every day, leading right up until that match. Needless to say, if you watch the match, the results were not pretty for us. We got knocked out. As one of the people who were in the match, we lost that basically in the first round. They were their normal selves, and we were not very good in the first round. The last time we played, we actually had a lead coming out of the first round, which was insane for us, which we didn't expect. And they basically set the tone. We're down 6. We spin first. We spin away from Apes, I believe. And then we take DCEU and we run it. Mostly on the strength of Jake having just spent time going over it for his singles match against Joe. So that was mostly him. They get Wizarding World. They have to go to multiple choice 1 time. That was a steal I was hoping that we would be able to get. It was a thing I knew right off the bat, but they got it. So we're down 5, I believe, going into round 3. Then we do filmography, which Jake and I are usually pretty money at, and we fucking screwed the pooch on that one. I will say, not to get me in trouble with people, we felt that there was a lack of consistency on the difficulty of the filmographies between the two that we got, especially in terms of the 3-pointer. That being said, they did what they needed to do. They got their 6 points. We got nothing. So that sets the tone that we are rife for a knockout at 11. And then we do deep cuts and we go tit for tat, and thus we get knocked out of that match. We needed 1 more point to come from somewhere, and we couldn't get it. So they knocked us out. The result of them beating us is not unique. We expected it. We hope to put up a better showing than that, unfortunately. What you can say is that Knights of Ren, which we'll get to further on. Only has one loss, and it's against Jake and I. So you can't take that away from us. We did do that. But technically, in the grand scheme of things, even though that one was ugly, it's 1-1 overall. So I prefer not to talk about that anymore. If you want to give me your thoughts on how you thought the match went, please.
Yeah, the multiplex is always weird for me.
Okay.
Like, it's the league that I know the least about because I've watched it the least. So, like, I always get perplexed at the questions that are asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, they had their big sign up yesterday.
Yes, they did.
And I was really thinking about it. And then I remembered there's 8 million other categories in here that I don't like.
So we did the run through today in our chat. There are 20 total categories.
Right.
One of those is quotes, and one of those is scores and soundtracks. So technically, there's 18 different universes that are now in existence because they added in Alien versus Predator, and they added Twilight to YA, and they took out Oscars, and they did supremely pull back on Disney, which is great for me as someone who has not watched all those movies yet. But people assuredly know that. But you should sign up. You should just take a crack. Take a crack, man. There are people who are fringe players. There are people who are geek players. There are a few exceptions where they're really good at everything. So you can fit within there. You know.
Yeah, that's the problem though. Is I don't think I could. Like, honestly, like, there's the hey, you talk about the next match. I'll be right back. My grandpa.
Of course. Yes. All right. So getting that stupid taste out of my mouth for the teams match. The next match is the Warzone singles title. Andrew Barr, who I think they said had defended 4 or 5 times going into that match, was playing Joseph Olivas, the algorithm, who had won basically a mini tournament to get to that point. He won a number 1 contenders match against my faction mate, David Nishimoto and Matt Quaylar, and was set up to play in that match. 2 Club Dread people. It was a very good match overall. I don't think they would necessarily say that they played their top-notch, 100% accurate type of match, but that match went down to the wire and required a last second or a final question in round 5 from Joseph to really pull that off. But it was only a matter of time. I've played Joseph in that league, and he beat me in the tournament on the last question that I should have known, but he still beat me. It was only a matter of time before Joseph would win a belt, and that kind of played out within that match. So that match sort of went as I expected to. Barr beat Redshaw and beat Boatman twice. I mean, he was getting to the point, and I think he probably still is at this point, where he's like the greatest singles champion as of now. And because of that, he gets basically an automatic rematch, which makes sense. So that match was very exciting. The interesting thing was at the end of that match, my partner, my buddy, my compadre, Jake, who in January had won the free-for-all and had been sitting on a title shot the whole way, came in, announced he was going to use his title shot, and that springboards us into the third part of the final act, which is an additional singles title match between Jake and Joseph.
So Garth said this about fandom. He's like, I'm a very low-level player, but I still play for fun.
I take a little umbrage with that. I don't think Garth's a low-level player. I think that's selling him a bit short. But you can play for fun, and I will say, well, I mean, that's just one category of 20. I mean, that's only 5%, Garth, technically. Actually, it's even less than that if you take it as a movie-by-movie bit of the 450 that there are within fandom.
Yeah.
But I take a little bit of umbrage. I mean, Garth's won matches. It's not like he's never won a match. So I take umbrage with that, Mr. McMurray. But I understand what you're saying. You can, and the good thing about fandom is, the good and bad thing, you can take it or leave it as a balance. It really introduces you to things you probably wouldn't watch otherwise. I mean, it has introduced me to a lot of crap that I would not watch otherwise, but there are things that it has opened me up to that I wouldn't normally watch, which has been nice. So that's been good. All right, so getting into the third part of the final act, Jake plays Joseph. Joseph, I think, in the real time had 1 day to enjoy his title before they filmed that next match with Jake. My buddy Jake comes out. He doesn't, it's not a convincing win, but it doesn't go down to the wire in quite the same way because Jake played a better round 3 and 4, or played a better round 4 for sure, and a better round. Jake got his strength in round 2, actually. That's really what kind of sealed the win for him overall. But he didn't have to answer his 4-pointer in the 5th round. So Jake goes from being the fandom teams champion to the Warzone singles champion in the blink of an eye, given how the videos suss out. And then...
So I have a question about that.
Yes.
So since I don't know, did he have to use it with Warzone singles?
I believe there was a stipulation that he had to use it by... No, he could have used it for teams. And he was going to, but they won. He and Bill, as they would say, unexpectedly won Tag Turmoil. And then, you know, we'll talk about what happens at that title match. But they basically set themselves up. So Jake decided he would use it for a singles title.
Yeah. Okay, because I was wondering, like, could he have turned around and just... Y'all rematched Ninth Ren like immediately?
No. There's the setup for the fandom singles title before we got into this last portion of Final Act Part 3. Tim won the fandom free for all, so he had that title shot, which he used for that, and Scully had a number 1 contender one, which he used to play Coho in something they arranged, and he destroyed Coho, as was to be expected. And that's what led to that 3-way. There are 2 free-for-alls that are happening. I do not know when they air, but they are filming in January. I know this because I was invited to both.
Okay, so there's a Phantom one and a Warzone one?
Yes.
I guess. All right, so Jake won the Warzone one.
Jake won the Warzone one, in addition to winning the Manager Bowl and getting us a faction. But yes, Jake won that Warzone one, which is why he was given the opportunity to do what he did.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't understand that, because I was just like, what? Because, like, obviously I hadn't seen the third video, because the third video opens up with him and Bill talking, right? I think so.
No, the third video opens up with his singles match.
Right, but it's him and Bill talking, like, doing a promo being like, yeah, it's about time I use this thing, or something like that.
No, I think it was Anthony.
Oh, okay. It could have been. It could have been him and Anthony.
I think it was Anthony.
Yeah.
But either way, Jake wins that match fairly handily. Then we get into the team's title, which we discussed. Thank you, Garth, for that reminder that I did lose to you in a classic, which prevented me from getting the 4 wins. I appreciate that. But that's me getting second in classics is basically how I operate. The fact that I got 3 wins at all was kind of a fucking shock. Then we get to team's title, which was a great thing for us as a fun DMC faction because it was Ginyu versus Kumite. And I think Kumite, if you ask them, they would have been the heavy underdogs in that. But they came out and won. Bill played very spectacularly, and Jake played his normal dominant self. And I think they got a steal or 2 in round 2. I think they played a better round 4, and that's sort of, and then Ginyu got a hard 4-pointer in round 5. So the faction kept the belt, but that made Jakey 2 belts. Unfortunately, we couldn't do the Ren thing, so he could have been Jakey 3 belts. I was very disappointed we were not able to do that for him. But next year's always a thing, so you never know. We might get that title back. Who knows?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then that was all, right? Or was the fandom singles?
No, fandom singles was the last one, as to be expected, because that was the real crowning jewel of this. If you had watched, there was a promo specific for that match. It was the coolest promo that Multiplex has done, where they went back through Tim and Nick and Scully's history in fandom and all the times they basically have played each other singularly to this point, to lead to this culmination. That was a great match. Tim was definitely the third wheel of that match, clearly.
Yeah.
He was drinking. He was very far behind. I think he sort of was on his victory lap, so to speak. So this was mostly a 2-horse race. Scully, man, was just dominant. I mean, he was winning. He got a perfect round. He was beating Nick by 3. It was basically him and Nick the whole way, but Scully had a nice lead. And then Scully missed, 2 critical things in round 5, especially the Jade Palace thing that could have given them the win. And Nick kept the title. And that was one of the better fandom singles matches you'll ever see. And with that, then we got the announcement that Tim and Nick are stepping back from fandom. So that means that belts will be vacated by Ren and by Nick. So that means that there are vacuums to be filled.
Okay, I didn't finish.
Oh, buddy, you got to fit. Yeah, no, this is
I saw the win because we were prepping for our. I watched it right before the show, so I stopped there and was like, "Okay, well, I saw who won. Let's go into the podcast now."
Oh no, that was a big thing, which I knew about because they basically told us, and sort of set up ideas for how next season will begin. I mean, I'm already in a number 1 contender match for the title for singles, but for team stuff, there's a short list of teams.
So will that be turned? Like, of course, if you can't say anything, I understand.
I can't.
Okay, because I was like, would that be turned into a title match, or would they turn the free for all into a title match? Because
no,
those seem like logical conclusions.
No, the singles thing, I don't know what's going to happen. I believe Nick said in the stream that the winner of the number 1 contender match doesn't automatically get the title because Scully will be involved, as he should be, considering how dominant he's been, and just, Nick squeaked that one out at the end. So no, they have plans in place for singles. Teams is a little bit murkier, but that's what happened. Tim and Nick are stepping back to take a full-time showrunner role, and thus those fandom titles are vacated.
Well, that's good.
I mean, Nick and Tim have basically done everything that you could do. If you've been keeping up with Multiplex, Nick put out these 2 posts about fandom singles and teams records, and it's basically all highlighted with Nick and Knights of Ren. So
yeah, and then I think there's one that's like Parker is because he won 9 in a row.
Yeah, I was happy to be on both lists. I was very excited. I'm the 4th most accurate fandom player, if you can freaking believe that. I'm just behind Nick, Scully, and Joe, and no, wait, Joe's got 2% on me. Yeah, so that's pretty nice. And then Dummies have the record for the most points scored in a 5-round match during that title match, and we're the 4th most accurate team. We probably were something like 2 before that terrible title match, but
so I was looking at those posts, like it's like best record or best accuracy 2-round match. I'm like, when has there ever been a 2-round match?
Knockouts. They're rare. Knockouts are rare, but
okay. I was like, were there matches where they were just like, hey, there's only going to be a first and the 3rd round, no wheel round.
The one that really is telling is like Some Like It Hoth, which was Maggie and Tyler Buetler have the 2-round record for 29 points in 2 rounds. I was like, holy God. Could you imagine? That's so many points in 2 rounds. I mean, Knights of Ren have the 4-round at 42, and we're at 46 in 5 rounds, so it doesn't seem like that much of a jump. They probably would have had the record. They probably would have won the record back from us if we played a better match in that team's title match. So that's where everything stands. So Kirk is the fan zone champion right now. Jake is the singles and singles Warzone champion. Kumite is the team's champion. And Nick, retained his belt, and Knights of Ren won back their belts, but these belts are now vacated because they're taking a step back.
Yeah. Then of course they did.
Yeah, they did Game of Factions, which I hate. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's a good event. I just hate it because of how it went for me.
Yeah, I didn't understand how any of that worked. Like,
so basically what happens is the 4 factions. There's 6 different events. There's teams and singles for each, for Warzone, Fandom, and then they do a 50-50. So it's split between Warzone and Fandom. And everybody nominates 2 people, singles players and teams players for each one, but nobody can do more than 2.
Okay.
And this was used prior to this year when Cody stepped back, and the First Order is no longer a faction now, to decide whoever was in last would no longer be a faction. Luckily, DMC was the 4th faction in this, but fortunately we were not disbanded because of the fact that that First Order was being removed from the equation. I'm not going to go through each one. I will say that I got last in both of mine, but I still contend that I should have gotten 3rd in both of those. And especially the questions in the Fandom singles one pissed me off to this day. But that being said, all you need to know is that Kingsman won that. And then at the end of the 3rd video, they had a nice post about winning it, Cody sort of handing the reins off, Coho being his usual king-like self as the manager. And then there was a big announcement that 2 of my Fun DMC people have left and gone to the Kingsmen. Adelaide and Payson are now Kingsmen, and we had to do some recruiting as a result. But that's all you basically need to know, is that the Kingsmen won that. It didn't have any ramifications, except they get to decide in both free-for-alls if they want to have a person come in at the last 5th of the 25 to 30 or whatever, 25 to 35, I think.
Okay.
So that's the ramifications of it. That's the new one.
And this is what Garth said.
He's going to be joining, I think, with Malcolm. I think it's Worlds Apart. He'll let me know if that's, I forget what the team name is that they decided.
I think
know it's him and Malcolm. It's like Borders. It's like, should be Players Without Borders. I think that would be a good one. But I'm not here. Garth's very unique and creative, so he doesn't need my help with that.
Yeah, like I remember when we did the movie trivia face off, he was the Viking,
Yeah.
Whatever his gimmick was, where he was a thawed caveman, maybe. But that was
caveman lawyer from the old SNL days, Phil Hartman. Yeah. No, yeah, he was almost in the tournament. He almost made the tournament. He was very close. Okay. But yeah, so that's how that all ended up. There have been other things. We're getting close to the airing of the Full Metal Snowball. There are things that are still filming, but that's going to be coming up soon, probably by the beginning of January. I mentioned that I won the Untitled singles tournament. And that means I get to play Jake in a singles title match. Hooray for me. And then they just aired the team's version of that. They call it Curtain Call at Ontel. And Kumite was in that, Jake and Bill, and they played Lights, Camera, and Action, which is Cameron Holtzman and Cameron Redshaw. And if you didn't watch that match, go watch that match. I'm not going to tell you the results since it just aired yesterday.
Okay. So, trying to think. I think since we'll talk about our parent organization for a minute. I know.
Oh yeah. Oh, and sorry, Geek. RJ and David won the Geek tournament.
Yeah.
So they get to play each other to decide who gets to play Joe for the Untold Geek title.
But yeah, yeah. Now it's going to be like a thing where, like, it's weird because Antal, Joe's the champion, but guess what? We never got to see him play Nick. Nick has now left fandom, so we'll never get to see Joe play Nick.
Well, he never got to the point to contend for a fandom singles title. But
yeah,
I said Nick and Tim stepped away. Doesn't mean they won't ever come back.
yeah, like that's true. But yeah, so that's a thing, and it's it's gonna be an interesting time. I know
What do you want to talk about with the parent organization?
Jay Burns beat
beat Boy Meets World Sean Hunter.
Yep. And then Tyler beat
Abel. He beat Abel DeLue.
Yep. And then I don't think we still know the result between Brittany and.
We do not. We do not know who I'm playing in the semis. Yeah.
Yep.
So what a semi. Tyler and Jay and me.
Yep.
What a threesome that is, huh? Who's your money on, Colton, between those three?
Let's see. Well, I mean, I think you're gonna win.
You think I'm gonna win the tournament or win the next match? Or
yeah.
both,
so I think you're gonna end up beating Brittany.
Okay.
I assume Brittany beats Antonio.
Okay.
And I think you'll end up beating Jay because I think Jay is going to beat Tyler.
You think Jay's going to beat Tyler?
Yeah.
In this case, I don't want to go into saying how I think I'll do, but I definitely think Tyler's coming out of that. And Tyler was my pick to come out of the top of that bracket anyway. So
okay.
I just know him. I know him personally. I know how good he is. So and I mean, he's in the fandom 5-way #1 contender match with me too. So I sort of know how that kind of goes down. I meant not the result of that. I'm just saying I know of Tyler and I know that he's really good. So that's where we stand with that. We also had some other singles matches in TMG singles tournament.
Yeah, I haven't watched any of them.
Okay. David beat.
Oh yeah, I did watch that one.
Zach Shelton.
Yep.
And
that was a miracle. He got Star Wars, right?
Yes, that's how he won.
Yeah. He got it by knockout, which given David, like he was like, this is the first singles match I've ever won. And I'm
he
like
was so very excited about it.
Yeah.
Chad Webb beat James Puckett, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think in this last match, I think Hunter beat John Mayer.
Okay.
So that's that one. That's like how many matches? You've 16 matches in the first round, I think, and they've gotten through 4 of them. So that
So we'll probably be done with the tournament by August.
Yeah, I'm in that tournament, by the way, too. I get to play Jeremy Adams first. I'm very upset about it.
Yep. But all right, so let's move on to our TV talk time.
Yes, let's go ahead and do so.
Let's go ahead and throw a spoiler tag up there. Hawkeye, episode 5. Yeah, it's I know it's been a week almost, but still, things happened. Like it was good. I really liked it. I think this was the best episode.
It's definitely the best episode. I don't think that's a question.
And yeah, like I feel sorry for Jack.
Yeah, he's as soon as that happened, I looked at my wife and I was like,
it's her.
It's her. It's definitely her. You don't get Vera Farmiga to be like the jilted wife or fiance in this case, who doesn't know about all the bad things her soon-to-be husband is doing. You get her to be a hero or a villain, and in this case, it's a villain. It's clearly.
Yeah, and which like now, like the episode obviously ends with Lena revealing that her mom is the one who hired her.
Makes sense.
And that she's working with Kingpin.
Yes.
Which, like, so now
I knew that, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think early on I was like, she's definitely the person who's shouldering up to a big boss type. I just don't know who it is. But
yeah,
I knew it was her. I was like, that.
I thought it was going to end up being her shoulder. Like once I realized she was, bad, I was thinking, it was going to be her, like, aligned with Valentina.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, the last time we saw Yelena before this time was in the post credit of Black Widow, telling Yelena that it was Clint Barton who killed her sister.
Yep.
So when they were like the big boss, like this is who hired me, I was like, didn't Val hire you? No, she's an intermediary, I guess. And it was what's her mom's name?
I do not remember for the
Shit.
life.
Okay, it's like Eleanor.
Yep.
I guess it was Eleanor then. But I would love to hear the reasoning for this in the next episode. I assume it has something to do with.
Well, all right. So Garth said this.
We should just bring Garth on. He should just be talking about this stuff with us, honestly, the way this is going. No, I love the comments, Garth. Yeah, I believe who did I think I heard that Jack's character is based on a character named like Swordsman.
Yeah.
And I had heard stuff about Kate Bishop's mom as well, but I'm very not well versed in comics, so.
Yeah, and then of course, like, it's Vincent D'Onofrio, it's Kingpin.
Oh my freaking god!
And then like, yeah, like whenever Clint is doing the Ronin thing and fighting Echo, and he's like, your boss hired or put out the tip for me to kill your dad, and I'm like, ooh.
I love this Kingpin playing both sides thing.
Yeah, and
very Kingpin of him, of course.
Yeah, and then of course, like, now I wonder if, like, is him and Valentina aligned?
Is he funding her ability to make like the Dark Avengers or whatever they're called?
Yeah, because like in the comics, Norman Osborn leads the Dark Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just be reassociating that so that they don't have to get Sony's permission to use Norman to Kingpin, which is perfectly fine.
The synergy, which we'll talk about between this and a certain movie that came out this last week, is wonderful. That's the best thing that Disney does, is the synergy between their TV and movies.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
We'll talk about that when we get to that point.
Yeah.
But the fight between them, their relationship, the talk between Kate and Eleanor, basically establishing a lot of Kate's motivation for things, which we already knew because that was set up at the beginning of the show and sprinkled in as we went through. But that conversation that they have in her room, her trying to get a hold of Clint, but it feeling more like him blocking her off, and you're not sure if she will actually get to be involved again. All of that stuff. The character work in this was a really good episode. The conversation that Yelena and oh my gosh,
Kate Bishop.
So I mentioned it that we have 4 people nominated for Oscars who now are in the show. And that doesn't include Vincent D'Onofrio, who's awesome. Florence Pugh is way too overqualified for this. I mean, like, way too overqualified. She's just radiating charisma while she has to do this terrible Russian accent of hers. And I love the conversation that they have. That's the Kingpin reveal. That's my favorite part of it.
I love the beginning because, like, this is the 3rd time we've seen the snap.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We did have that beginning it's been a week, so I've watched other things, but I forgot that is exactly what happened. They go in to do more of the work from Black Widow, and we get the indication of what it's like for people who are blipped, which is very interesting.
Which, like, that made me think, like, I know, the room changed as she was, which we hadn't seen that. Like, we had seen Far From Home, people just appear in the middle of the school and freak people out, and then Monica appear in her mom's hospital room, but her mom's dead, and now it's this. I like the fact that, I don't know how often people paint their bathrooms a dramatically different color like that, but I mean, I personally would never do that, even in 5 years. But
no, it's just to let you know a passage of time. It's novelty of a storytelling technique that they tried to use.
Yep. And yeah, I like that. Like now it makes me feel bad because Natasha probably knew her sister got killed by Thanos. I assume. So that makes her motivations in Endgame even more sad because she knows her sister died by Thanos as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that makes it even more sad that whenever she gets back, when Elena gets back, her sister's dead.
It adds more context to the scene in Endgame at Avengers headquarters where she's rallying the team after the snap, and she's talking about this being her only family, which is a little bit misguided now that we know what happens to Black Widow. But she knows that they're gone. She knows that Elena's gone.
And then Garth said this.
Well, I assume that place was huge. I assume there were people maybe in other bathrooms. She just happened to be in the good like powder room or whatever off to the side. But yes, I was hoping somebody would be on the toilet. We miss. There's not enough toilet stuff in the MCU, frankly.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a thing where the directors of Endgame have also talked that Hulk would have snapped and made it where people came back safely. So there's no way, like, let's say you're in a bathroom and you get blipped out of the bathroom and you come back, some guy's gonna punch you right in the head.
Or if you were on a plane, and you were in that section of air, and now there's no plane, so you would just literally fall from the freaking sky and die.
Yeah, so
that would be terrible. You would think Bruce would have been smart enough to recognize.
Well, no, because that's what the director said was that he brought back everyone safely. So yeah, if you were in the air, you were just brought back.
Well, that's good. You don't want 8 million people falling from the sky like first class, just getting murdered. Or I don't know what you would call that. Would that be a murder situation? I'm not sure.
I was just thinking about how, like, there's people that freak out. Like, what if you got blipped into a unisex bathroom? You're going to jail. If someone else is in there, you're going to jail. Like, you're not going to be able to explain that.
Or if you're like, we're in a building. That used to be something, and then it turned into like an adult bookstore room with like peeping area. And then
I was gonna say, like, if you were in the White House, like you were in the president's office, and then you got blipped out, and then they forgot that you were there, and then 5 years later you pop back in, you're gonna get shot. Because the Secret
Service on a military base or any sort of Pentagon. If you're in any sort of sensitive place and you flip and back, I bet that would be terrible. Somebody should have had the job, and maybe multiple people should have had the job of like tracking where people were who got blipped, and then like coming up with a spreadsheet or something so that people knew, like, oh, they blipped here. So FYI, everybody, they blipped here. So if they do come back, this is where they will come back at.
Yeah. Which I guess they probably didn't think about that. It was like a last-ditch whim that the Avengers were doing. So they probably weren't like, even though technically they should have notified the Sokovia Accords that, hey, we're about to do this time heist thing. But, and since...
No, the Sokovia Accords are only a thing
when
that the one movie was based around, and then a thing that they talk about in the background of things. But they never institute. It's one of those like false like paper type like pieces of litigation that doesn't actually mean anything in the grand scheme of how things are.
Like they reference it in Civil War and they reference it in Black Widow.
They reference it in we just watched this in preparation for Spider-Man. They mention it in Homecoming. They teach it in Homecoming in his high school.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because they're like, well, I think he's a fugitive now, but
no, like Peter's in class. This is after Ned finds out, and Ned's like bothering him about spider stuff, and his teacher and Peter and Ned's teacher's talking about the Sokovia Accords, like a history class or whatever, or a law class, whatever, civics. All those things you used to learn back in middle and high school.
Yeah, and like what Garth said here is the Sokovia Accords also played into Ant-Man and the Wasp because he's on house arrest.
Fair enough. Yes, that is true. I give him credit for that. You're right. 2 movies basically were affected by Sokovia Accords, and that's been it. How many movies have there been since Civil War?
Oh, like
11?
a million.
Been about 11, I think. So, yeah.
But yeah, okay. So do you have any predictions for tonight's episode or this next morning's episode?
Screw it.
Yep.
Clint Barton dies.
Yeah, I was wondering about that as well. Does he get the watch back? Does he make it for Christmas?
No.
I'm gonna be really sad.
Yeah.
When me and my kids watch that.
To be sad. By the way, his acting, Jeremy Renner's acting, has just been
great,
going up ever since the first episode. This is the best Clint Barton in terms of acting. Like, he's been funner and more effective, but his relationship to Clint Barton as Jeremy Renner, the actor, and how he portrays him has been the best in this. And a lot of people are talking about, and I never would have thought this to this point, this might be the best MCU show.
Yeah,
they stick the landing. If this next episode's good, this might be the best of all of them.
I say if it sticks the landing, I still don't think it will be as good as WandaVision, but it will move up to number 2.
I mean, WandaVision really kind of screwed the pooch on their landing. That last episode was
but I actually really liked the last episode, minus the boner joke.
I like parts of it, but the fighting, like the CGI, it's a lot to handle. It's like a mini version of all the third act things people make fun of, but it doesn't have the budget behind it to at least make it look good. No, I understand. WandaVision was good it had like the middle episodes of that show are fantastic, but the beginning and the end are a little rough. I actually might think Loki is like last.
Yeah,
I think I'm lucky last if this one sticks a landing.
Yeah, I actually agree with that completely. If next week, whenever we decide to, or 2 weeks from now, whenever we decide to do a show again, whenever it is, then we'll have to rank
them.
Yep. But
I get previews of like Falcon and Winter Soldier when I watch stuff on YouTube, and I know it wasn't great, and there were a lot of bad stuff in it, but there's a lot of good stuff in Falcon and Winter Soldier, like a lot of heavy stuff.
Now, of course, like I haven't watched the trailer for this week's episode because like they post a TV spot a few days beforehand.
I don't watch that stuff at all.
Yeah, I don't watch anything like that. So of course, like I know the trailer was called the big guy or the big man or whatever, and I was immediately like, nope, not watching that.
No.
Yeah, so
I felt bummed. They gave Vincent D'Onofrio a credit in the episode.
Yeah.
I was like, well, he's just in a picture. And then I thought, oh crap, are we getting a post credit?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I forwarded through it, and I was like, nope. Yeah. So I think
this also had "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" as the end credit song, which is just superb. I was very happy.
Yeah, like so the finale, I think there's one prediction I will not make during this segment. I'll wait till the end of our show to make it. But I think, like Garth said, that he thinks that Echo will confront Kingpin.
Yeah.
But I don't even think. I think we'll see Kingpin a lot in this episode, but I think
better be in it a lot.
Yeah, I don't think he'll. I think he'll once Elena doesn't do what she's supposed to, and Eleanor fails him. She'll be like, yeah. He'll disregard her, and it will lead into the Echo series.
Do you think we'll get other Kingpin-related people? Do you think we'll get a Wesley? Well, I mean, he died technically, but I mean, this is different circumstances. Do we get a Wesley? Do we get an Alistair Smythe?
I was going to say, I think we might get a Bullseye.
Oh!
That is and I don't know who it will be. I don't think it won't be Colin Farrell, and I don't think it will be the guy that was in Daredevil season 3. because that's an obscure thing that no one watched.
Yeah, and after things that have happened, I need to go back and watch those.
Yeah, but I do think, and I'll give I think Clint's gonna make it home.
Okay. To what purpose?
I
Is he
think
retired then?
yes.
Okay. So he passes the mantle, but he still lives.
Well, honestly, I wonder if there will be a season 2 because they've not talked about it. But the same way that they did not talk about Loki, and it was revealed in the end credit that there was going to be a season 2, like this, like WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, were both shows that they said that were limited series.
Well, that's because they were going to be used for
other stuff.
For cinematic purposes,
but,
being in Multiverse of Madness and then having a 4th Captain America movie.
Yeah, like, what if they never said anything about that, but everyone assumed it was going to be one season, and they've renewed it for season 2. Loki, everyone assumed that it was going to be a limited series, but then they flipped the script and said it was going to be a season 2. And I think they're going to do the same thing with Hawkeye. Is they'll announce that there's going to be a Hawkeye season 2, but Jeremy Renner will get like really hurt in the last episode, and it will be mostly Haley Steinfeld.
So he'll just be a big thing of like frozen peas.
Well, I think he'll in the second season he'll get the watch back to his wife, and then that's when it will be revealed that she's Bobby Morse, and that it will be her and Haley going through there doing the new Hawkeye stuff. Because they have Linda Cardellini, and they only have her she's had like 20 lines in everything.
She's been in it way more than I thought she was going to be. I thought she was just going to be a voice on a phone.
Yeah, like I don't understand why you cast someone that's that talented if you're not going to use her or something like that. And if she's Mockingbird, then it makes sense. But
yeah, bird, yeah. Sorry, you set me up for that.
But yeah, so that's what I think is going to happen. It could totally be that I don't want him to die because I don't want to do it just for the kids' sake. Not only just his kids, but mine as well. Is I think so. As a father, I'm like, I don't want to see that because it will make me sad. It will make my kids sad. It will make me even more sad when his kids realize that he's not coming home, and he promised that he would be home by Christmas. So, like, I know that's probably the gut punch. That's probably what they're going for. But if it is a limited series, you don't end the series like that. I don't think.
I think it would be an interesting take if they did.
Yeah, because besides, I don't think they've ever done that. Like, just ended something with Iron Man's death, yes, but even that was kind of happy. Like
it was triumphant.
Yeah, and then Coulson dying, but then
who didn't really die.
Well, I mean, in the context of the MCU, I think so. But in the context of the multiverse, no. Because he's an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I don't think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon anymore. So, no, I don't think... Garth, I absolutely think Bobby Morrison will absolutely not be canon. It's not been canon for years. So I assume that they'll erase that. Even though, I've been watching it. I've told Robert, I started rewatching it, the entire show, and I finished the first 5 seasons in 3 weeks. And now the last 2 seasons are not season 6 is so rough that I've only been able to watch 1 episode a day because I just don't want to. But I think they will absolutely, if they make Linda Cardellini Mockingbird, then that will be them saying, yeah, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not a thing. And I'm okay with that, I guess, because Phil Coulson or Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson is in the animated stuff, so he could show up back in live action as a multiverse version of himself, but we don't have to have him be the Chronicom android version of himself that he ends up being at the end of season 7, which I know you don't understand what that means.
No, it sounded
awful. The end of season 5 is such a good ending. He actually passes away, and they're like, well, we don't want to get rid of our biggest star, so let's bring him back as a robot. And I'm like, this is so stupid.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
But yeah, all right, so let's
wait, hold on. A couple other things.
Okay.
If you believe that this is going to be renewed for season 2,
yes.
Does that mean Kingpin is stuck in the realm of this show, or do they move on to something else, and Kingpin thus then has a chance to be part of the cinematic part of the MCU?
Honestly, I think he'll head up the Dark Avengers, like we said earlier, or what I said
in a
earlier.
concentrated effort.
Yeah, and I think that's what this is going to lead into. Is he'll be in Hawkeye season 2, and he'll be in Echo, and I think he's going to be in something else that we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Will any other New York-based superheroes show up? Either tonight or further along in the Hawkeye franchise?
Yes, I do believe so.
Okay.
And that's all I'm going to say about that, because we're about to move on to something else that... All right.
Can I tell you what? There's one other thing.
Yes.
I think this will be the start of the Young Avengers. The official start. With Yelena and Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
I think that will be a strict thing where maybe they don't say Young Avengers, but they say new line of Avengers or some shit. They something like that happens, and we get this is like the first call.
Yeah, I agree, because like they already have like Ironheart coming out in a little while, and they got the new Hawkeye, they got the new
and
Black we have
Speed and Wiccan, and we have Isaiah's grandson.
Yep.
And
I mean, and we have Sam being the new Captain America.
Yeah, we have all this stuff.
Yeah. So like I could totally see it.
Okay.
But all right. So hey, you out there on the internet. I mean, so essentially the only one who's watching live is Garth.
By the way, Garth, just wonderful. Thank you for watching.
Yeah. If you are not actually, and there was someone else earlier, but I don't know who they are. Water Buffalo TM.
I don't know who that is.
Our page. Yeah, apparently they just Googled our
probably we're looking at our title.
Yep. And because I made sure I put our title as some, like I listed the things we were going to talk about and then the episode, because I was told that works great for the algorithm.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do from now on. But yeah, you out there on the internet, you have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home. What are you doing?
Get the hell out of here.
You're in another country and haven't been able to see it because of the new variant. I am so sorry, but guess what? We're about to spoil the crap out of that. But before we do that, I want to ask you, what did you think of the movie in a non-spoiler capacity, and how do you rank it among the other Spider-Man movies?
Can I also rank it among MCU movies as well?
You sure can.
Okay. I love this movie. Unapologetically. I know this movie has narrative problems and logic problems and all that stuff. But I think they did a better job with this movie to coordinate multiverse type stuff and bringing together all manners of hero and villain alike in a better way than they did in Endgame. And I could be a victim of recency bias for sure. But this was a 2.5 hour movie that I did not drag in whatsoever. I think it is the most emotionally charged Spider-Man movie ever. And I know some people might argue with Amazing Spider-Man 2 and what happens to Gwen Stacy and blah, blah, blah. And Spider-Verse, I was outright bawling at stuff in this movie. Not like stuff that made me excited because it was happening for the first time ever. Emotional things that tore me down to my core as a person.
Yep.
As a human being. And without going into spoilers, I don't think it's close. I think this is the most emotional a Spider-Man movie has, and maybe will ever make me feel.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to watch it again. Where it ranks among Spider-Man movies for me, it is probably, I will say it is 3 amongst the 9.
Okay.
I will say Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2 I like more.
Okay.
It can move up.
So I have a thing because like I know recency bias is totally a thing. Like in the world. Like I understand that. But I agree with you. Like there were moments where I was just awestruck. Like the fact that this is both my sons' first Spider-Man movie in the theater that they've ever seen. This is my wife's first Spider-Man movie in the theater since Spider-Man 3.
Yikes.
And technically my 27-week-old embryo son, it is his first Spider-Man movie because at this point he can hear, so he heard the Spider-Man movie. So I was like having like this entire thing. Like Spider-Man is my favorite character ever in the history of comic books. So because that was me when I was younger. I was the nerdy kid that, we all are.
Yeah, we're not here unless we were the nerdy kid of some kind.
Yeah, like it's a thing. Like, but I understand. Like, I'm not going to say it's the best Spider-Man movie because that would be a recency bias thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is my favorite Spider-Man movie, and I think it is my favorite MCU movie. Like, I thought it was gonna. I didn't think it was gonna top Endgame for me, but it absolutely did. Like all the things it did, I was just like, I was so happy. And yeah, like I want to go watch it again, but guess what? Like I for reasons that I can't go watch it again right now. But I'm going to go see it again before it leaves the theaters in 45 days or however long it is. But I'm going to watch it again. And whenever it comes on digital, I'm going to watch it again. And whenever it comes on Blu-ray, I'm going to watch it again. And I loved it. And I think, obviously it is, the buildup of all this stuff that's happened with Tom Holland's Spider-Man and other things. Since we're not in spoiler mode yet. But yeah, like it's wonderful. Like I love every
such a delight.
Yeah.
I will say I think it's my third favorite. I know what I just said about it doing a better job at weaving together things than Endgame. I think it's my third favorite behind Infinity War and Endgame. And I think as a movie, it's probably, I'll say it's 5th behind those two, Civil War and Black Panther.
Yeah.
As a narrative movie, how it's structured, and I know people would probably put like Guardians above it and Civil War above it and maybe another like Spider-Man Homecoming above it. I will never get as much enjoyment out of watching those movies, and I probably won't get as much enjoyment of watching it. Like, I would get more enjoyment watching this than Black Panther and Civil War for sure. Yeah. But I think those are technically better made movies.
Yeah, that's the reason why. Like, I couldn't say that it's the best in either of those two categories. I could definitely say it was my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, like obviously things like I think the first Iron Man is a really, really good movie.
It's a very good movie.
I think the Black Panther, Civil War, Winter Soldier, they're all really, really good movies.
Mm-hmm. Homecoming's a good movie.
Yeah.
As a singular Spider-Man movie, and I know I've watched so many reviews, Colton, since I watched this on Sunday to today. Basically, when I'm working, I'm also watching Spider-Man reviews because I'm so into it right now. I know a lot of people are like, it doesn't hold up narratively to Homecoming. Even some people have said Far From Home, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
But it's so fun and enjoyable, and it makes you feel so many things. Because as you said, it's a build-up. This is the 9th Spider-Man movie that we've seen, the 9th real Spider-Man movie. that has his title in it. And it plays into all these things that coordinate to what we've seen on screen and off screen. There's so much weight that is lifted from everybody as characters and as people. It just makes you feel so damn good for everyone, except for when people are feeling bad and they emote to the point that make you want to tear your freaking guts out and sob all over them.
Yep. All right. So let's get into some spoiler stuff. So the movie starts out with at the end of, Far From Home,
as was probably expected.
Yeah, the reveal happens, and he's flying he's slinging through the city. He gets back to his apartment, and he's taking off his clothes.
Well, let's go to before that. MJ's on the ground. This happens, and people just saw her with Spider-Man, so they start attacking her.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Oh my God, you're Spider-Man's girlfriend!" And then people in New York, people who go around famous people, it happens where Spider-Man comes down, he nudges someone, and somebody's like, "Oh my God, Spider-Man pushed me. Spider-Man hit me." And then they're going around. He has that great conversation with Ned, the dude. And then they swing home through the sewers. And Flash finds out that he's Spider-Man, which is such a dichotomy for him of loving Spider-Man and hating Peter Parker, which is wonderful. And go ahead. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure we.
And then, of course, so I was watching a TikTok the other day. My wife sent it, and she was like, "What does this even mean?" Because apparently there's in the movie, because Zendaya's taller than Peter, so the harness that she's in, she hits the ground first, and then he hits the ground when they get on top of the bridge.
Yeah.
And she was like, but my wife was like, "What does that even mean?" I was like, "Well, she's tall. She's taller than him." So she would hit the ground first. So they'd have to do that take over and over to make sure Peter hit the ground first. So it would seem like whatever. So when that happened, I pointed to my wife. I was like, "That's the scene that they're talking about." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And then they get into the apartment, and May comes in, and she's like, "Use protection." And she's like, "Oh, wait, y'all aren't doing it. Oh, hey, Zendaya, or hey, MJ." And Happy's out there crying
because they're breaking up, which was basically established at the end of Far From Home as well.
Yeah,
that was not gonna last.
Yeah, and then it's a lot of mess. Like they go to they get arrested.
Yeah, they bring back damage control, which we haven't seen since Homecoming, basically. Unless you played, I think they're in games. I think they're video games still.
But, which is so weird because technically Tony is supposed to head damage control. So you would think that if he's heading it, then it would be Pepper.
No, I think they're like a government organization who is sponsored by Stark Tech.
Yeah, and Stark Tech gets taken, they get arrested, then it goes back to the apartment, and it's Matt Murdock.
I mean, there's some good stuff in the interrogations too about MJ and May telling him at the same time, "Don't say anything to the lawyers present." And then my favorite part, which is the dude coming to Ned, is like, "I was just talking to Michelle, and she's talking about how she learned about Spider-Man first." He's like, "No, I knew about Spider-Man way before. I was the guy in the chair. We hacked a suit." And the guy's like, "Oh, so you admit that you were the original accomplice of the fugitive Spider-Man?" Like, all that stricken from the record, please. And then then we get into, can I be honest? My favorite reveal.
Honestly,
my favorite reveal.
It's the one reveal that I think, it's so fan service. I don't know how I feel about it.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, I do like it a lot, but it just served the purpose of them being like, "Hey, Daredevil's back in the universe."
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and then I'm like, yeah, I mean, I already figured that out because Vincent D'Onofrio was in
Hawkeye. Yeah, that's what I mean, the synergy between Hawkeye. We learned on Wednesday that Vincent D'Onofrio is in Hawkeye, he's in the MCU, and then we learned on Friday or whenever you watch the movie that Daredevil's in the MCU. You're like, yes, thank you. As a person who's a proponent of the 90s animated show, there's a wonderful character arc of Matt Murdock / Daredevil helping Peter Parker / Spider-Man, because I think Peter Parker's on trial for murder, if I remember, yeah, I forget who he murdered. Black Cat's father, I think, maybe. I don't remember. But the point is that there's a lovely arc of 2 or 3 episodes where they work together and Black Cat works together. And I'm all for, and in comics, obviously, Spider-Man and Daredevil team up a lot. So I'm all for Matt Murdock being Peter's lawyer. And I was watching something where they claimed that maybe Aunt May knew that he was a superhero of some kind, and that's why maybe she hired him, because they have similar life experience. Because when the brick comes through the window with one of the best lines, how'd you stop that? I'm a very good lawyer.
And like, I have seen things where like people have talked about he can't be in the red suit because it will be too similar to the Daredevil TV show suit. So I've heard theories that he'll be in the yellow suit when we see him as Daredevil in the MCU, just to differentiate between the two. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. Like, I love that idea. And honestly, so that's my prediction for Hawkeye that I wasn't allowed to talk about. I think he'll show up in Hawkeye tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think they will rename the Echo show, and it will be Daredevil.
Well, that seems rude to Echo.
Well, because they haven't given her a lot of character development, so I think they'll release the Daredevil show. She'll be in it, and then they'll release the Echo show. But I think the Daredevil show will just come out first.
I think that's a lot of Daredevil for a week.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll be referenced in the show, but I don't think he will show up.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Somebody also commented, like, how could he stop a brick? Like, he doesn't have superhuman strength. I'm like, he's got great reflexes, and it's a brick. Like, it's a person throwing a brick. Of course he can stop a brick.
Yeah, like, if someone threw a brick at me, I might be able to stop it.
It's not impossible. Like, well, it was thrown really hard. I'm like, it's thrown by a dude or a woman, like a human person. It's not like it was thrown by it's not like Hulk threw a fucking brick through their window.
Yeah.
By the way, the Mysterio was right stuff that's through like everything. Like, I believe Mysterio. I love it. I love this. J. Jonah Jameson is like, somebody compared him like he's the Alex Jones of this universe. I love it. He's like the Rush Limbaugh. He's the dude who rails against everything that might be good and righteous in the world, especially from his own like basement green screen, which is wonderful. That's a good reveal as well. When they realize, like, at first he's just like hamming it up in his own basement or whatever, and then after the Spider-Man reveal, then he gets an actual studio. It's great. But
yeah,
keep going with the recap.
But okay, so then he goes to school, and then there's the gym teacher who thinks he's
Hannibal Buress. Like, in 2 minutes, it's just, I wish there was more Buress, Martin Starr, and JB Smoove in this, and I assume there will be more in deleted scenes, but that part was just delightful.
And then I was like, I thought the principal was going to be in it.
The one who's the descendant of the Howling Commando guy?
Yeah, because he's been recently written out of a show that he is in. So I thought, oh, this would have probably been filming the same time he would have been filming stuff for No Way Home. So I assumed he was going to be in No Way Home, and then he wasn't.
Maybe he'll be in a deleted as well.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay, well, whatever.
You also skipped over the part that because the brick went through the window, they realized it wasn't safe in their apartment, so they go and stay with Happy. And my namesake is there to greet them. Dummy is there to greet them, and that's wonderful for me. I really enjoyed that.
But of course, like, I don't remember everything sequence wise, which I'm glad you're here for.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
So then they go to school, and then they hang out on the roof, and
talking about Peter maybe having the power of a male spider to hypnotize females, which is a funny.
Also, I love how they just casually drop that her last name is Watson.
Yeah, she's like, I don't like to go by that.
It's Jones, and because I thought like that, she's MJ, but she was just going to be like Michelle Jones the entire time. But then they're like, they dropped.
No, you're Michelle Jones Watson.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool.
Choice.
Yeah. And then, like, of course, Ned goes up there and he hugs him. And I'm like, that's the third wheel that doesn't.
Yeah, but he's the most adorable third wheel.
Yeah. Like, I told my wife, like, my best friend and his wife, that's exactly how I was up until me and my wife started dating. Is
Yeah.
I was the third wheel like that who just was like that. And yeah, like that was me. And let's see.
This is where they're talking about school. And,
yeah, and then
they
they
want to
don't
go
get
to
accepted.
MIT together.
Yeah, they don't get accepted in any of their schools, which is really sad.
She talks about, she has that line that's repeated all over, like, if you expect disappointment, then you'll never be disappointed. And Peter tries to be optimistic, and then they start getting letters. The sequence, the montage of him getting letters, which if you've ever been accepted to college ever, you know, if you get a small letter, you're not getting into that college. So they should have realized that right off the bat. But then we get to the thing about MIT. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and then yeah, they realize that because of recent events, they can't be accepted to MIT. So then, like, you know, the dumb kid thing that he does is he immediately like goes to his wizard friend.
Well, he looks up and sees Halloween decorations. He's like, "Oh, those look like Doctor Strange." I'm like, "No, they look like a witch." But I understand your premise.
Yeah. So then he's like, "Is there any kind of like thing you can do?" He's like, "Well, I don't have the time stone anymore." And then
yes,
it's really funny that Wong is the sorcerer supreme.
That's a great reveal. I love that so much. It's it's kind of a throwaway line, but it's not. I love that.
Yeah, because Doctor Strange was gone for 5 years, so he lost
technicality.
But yeah, so and he's like, well, and like in the trailer, they Wong is like, don't use that spell.
Yeah,
and goes through the portal, and then like he like winks at Peter, like, yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway. But he's like, hey, we've used it before. Don't you remember the party at Carmitage? And he's like, no. He's like, exactly. And he's like, and he goes through the portal, and he's just like, fine,
leave me out of it.
Yeah, and
I heard that they probably filmed both of those, and they played the one of the trailer, and they probably got not good reactions of the trailer. So like, let's do the softened version of that.
And then yeah, so then he goes down, he does the spell, and Peter keeps on asking for crap. And
well,
then
everyone will. Well, not MJ. Okay, that's all right. That's fine. Well, not Ned. He's my best friend. Not Aunt May, because it killed me to have to tell her, and I don't have to go through that again. But what about Happy? Well, I'm not happy. I'm angry. No, I just happy too, and then shit goes out of control.
Yeah, but he contained it real good, and
he really did. He did a good job of containment.
Yeah, and then yeah, and then he's like going through there, and he realizes, hey, I can talk to the admin of the acceptance department or whatever.
That's a great part where he's like, I mean, you exhausted all resources because you talked to them after. He's like, you can talk to them? He's like, you had me do this, and you didn't even think that you could just plead your case. No. So then we get to one of the famous parts of the trailers that have been seen.
Yep, and then yeah, he goes through, he finds the lady. She's like, yeah, I'll she's like, whatever it is, I can't exactly remember what she tells him.
She's like, I can't, like, he starts a speech, and then she's like, you really didn't rehearse this at all, did you?
Yeah.
And he's like, they shouldn't pay for my mistakes. And she's like, there's really nothing I can do. And that's when a certain baddie starts wrecking shop.
Yep, Otto Octavius comes through, and then yeah, he starts messing Peter up, and he thinks that he's like, now you think you're bad because you got your fancy new suit,
basically.
And he's like, he thinks he's Toby, and he stabs him in the chest and takes the nanotech, and then he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna stab you in the. Pin you up against this wall, and I'm gonna stab you. And then the nanotech from his face goes to his chest and blocks it. And then he's like, "Wait, I can
Bluetooth connect."
Yeah, and he's like, "Wait, you're not Peter Parker." And
Yeah.
he's like, "What?"
There was
And-
also a small part where he talks about. There's a couple things. He talks about where's the device, and Peter's like, "What device?" It's like the power of the sun in the palm of my hand. It's like I don't know what you're talking about. And then there's also a part where we see Peter's rage come through a little bit because he talks about peeling. There's a lot of Alfred Molina reused lines from Spider-Man 2. He talks about peeling the flesh off his girlfriend's bones, I think. And then Peter's like, "What did you say?" And you see Peter, when MJ is now involved, gets kind of pissed off. And that's the first sense you get of this as we move along in the story. And he has more of a reason to be pissed off.
Yep. And then and then he goes saves the lady, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll talk to the dean of admissions."
And I'll talk to him about your friends and you. And Peter's like, "You don't need to talk to them about me. This is about my friends." And she's like, "I'm going to talk to them about your friends and you because you're a real hero." And then she does the thing about, like, like chiding Doctor Octopus for causing problems and like wanting to hit him with her bag or whatever.
Yeah, and then
then he's as he's ready to get off the bridge, we see the goblin bomb, and we hear the goblin laugh, and he comes through the mist.
Oh yeah, and then he's like, "Wait, Norman?" Octavia says, and then they get sucked into the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yes.
And he's like talking about the multiverse, and Peter's like, "What? That's real?"
Yeah, and that's Strange has that thing about, warning about the messing, tampering with the multiverse. That's something that frighteningly little about, which makes a reappearance as we get later on in the movie. But yeah, this is great because now we get the mission, right? We're in the bottom of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Doctor Strange gives him the device. He basically steals his web shooter, turns it into a matter displacement device, or magical matter displacement device. And now Peter has to go and round up everybody who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yep. And so I'm trying to remember. They go to.
So Ned and MJ come in, and that's where we get the line about Scooby doing this shit.
Yeah, and like in the trailer, Scooby Doo that crap, which I knew was gonna definitely be replaced in the actual movie.
It should have been. It played better with the curse in it, honestly. Yeah. The crap part is really weird, honestly. Hearing Benedict Cumberbatch say crap in his accent is strange. But yeah, this is where we also learn, MJ, they hear the plan. They hear what Peter was trying to do. And MJ's like, maybe next time just consult with us when you're going to make decisions like this before you try to incorporate a spell that could change the course of the universe. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah, and then so they find a Electro, right?
Yeah. Also, Doctor Strange found Lizard.
Yep.
Sewer and brought him back. So we get Xiphons, but not him, just a Lizard CGI monster.
Yeah. So you find Sandman and Electro.
Yeah.
And he accidentally zaps a tree in, and they're like, "Is that a guy?
No.
Or a guy that turns into a tree?"
Yeah, that's a pretty good line for that.
Yeah. And Electro starts out as his blue self, which I like, and then goes into being full on Jamie Foxx.
I like the idea of him feeling different power in this universe and that potentially affecting him to look different. I think that's a good enough explanation of why he is more Jamie Foxx now than he ever was.
Yep. And so he gets them back to the place.
Yeah. Well, Sandman's there, and he's his Sandman at the end of Spider-Man 3, where he actually helps Peter contain Electro.
Yep.
And Peter shoots him with the thing, and Sandman's like, whoa, what's this crap? What are you doing? And he's going to turn on Peter, and Peter shoots him. So they're both back.
Yep. And then we see Goblin, or we see Norman break the helmet.
Oh, that's so good. It's a way better version of what Adam Driver does in The Last Jedi.
Yes. And you hear the goblin voice in his head, but he goes to walk off, and then he goes to May's soup kitchen.
Oh
And
yeah, we get Feast, like legitimately. I know it was there in Far From Home, but we get Feast. We see it from the Spider-Man, the PS4 game.
yes, yeah, and that's one thing we'll talk about in a few minutes. But yeah, and then May calls Peter and is like, "There's someone here that needs to help you, or needs your help."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Okay, fine, I'll go. You guys figure that stuff out." So he goes, gets the suit washed. Even though I like the suit turned inside out,
The suit turned inside out is cool.
yeah,
It's
it
really
looked
neat idea.
really neat.
Yeah.
And so then, like, it's just Norman being Norman, like a normal dude. So
Yeah, she convinces him that it is his responsibility to try to fix these people and not just send them back to their death. She starts being his main point of his main conscience in this movie, way more than the other ones for sure.
yeah. So yeah, then he takes him back. And then he's put in the thing as well, where he reveal then Otto reveals that he died, and then Sandman reveals that they both died.
Mm-hmm. I like that part. I thought that was cool.
And then Lizard and Electro have their conversation about why he got jacked up, doesn't have jacked up teeth and stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm trying to think what happens after that.
So after that, it Strange comes in with the box.
Yep.
And he's thinking about,
Just
activating it for the point of sending them all back to the point of their death.
Yep. And so Peter steals it and then traps him in the mirror dimension.
So cool. Everything about that. The fight, the reflections going through the portals, Peter's spider sense going off when he's in his astral projection form, so Strange can't get the box. When he's like, that was awesome, but don't do that to me ever again. And then the fight and Peter using geometry.
Yep.
Take him down, which serves a few purposes. It serves that Peter's a really, really smart person, A, and B, it takes Strange out of it so that he can't ruin everything for the course of the movie.
So, yeah, so then they go back to Happy's apartment, and Lizard stays in the truck.
Yeah, because they don't want to CG him.
Yeah, and so they're like, they fix Doc Ock, and he gives him back his the nanotech, which I thought was cool. And then Electro's like almost depowered.
Yeah.
And then Norman goes insane.
And we see so they fix Doc Ock with a fabricator machine to get his new inhibitor chip, and him coming back and recognizing Norman and them having that reveal is really cool. And then they're starting to work on Norman, and they do the Electro thing, as you mentioned. There's funny things. There's the funny line about I turned into Electro by falling into a thing of electric eels. I fell into a super collider. Guess you got to watch where you fall, which is a pretty damn good line. I love that. And then Peter's spider sense goes off in this weird way that you've probably seen like in drug trip movies. People are like, it's single cam shot, like first person camera. He's just moving around and it's all ethereal and he's not hearing people. And then you're like, what's going on? And I know some people thought another villain was going to make their way in, but shoots Norman Osborn because he realizes that he is the Goblin.
Yep. And and then they get out of there. Electro blasts Doc Ock out of the building, and Doc Ock disappears.
You're worried about frying his new inhibitor chip.
Yep.
He's back to being the old Doc Ock, the one that doesn't want to save humanity.
Yeah, and then Goblin is just beating the crap out of Peter.
That fight is so awesome.
Yeah, through floors.
They're power bombing each other through floors. Peter's punching him in the face. And he's just taking the abuse.
And then near the bottom, May gets got.
Yeah.
And I knew in that moment.
She injects him with the thing that they think is a cure, but it's not a cure. And then he says that he needs to turn Peter. He basically is like, I'm your inciting incident to be the Spider-Man that you need to be, which he thinks is to be a murderous, vengeful Spider-Man. And yeah, he blasts May with the glider in a way that you're like, she must be bent in half now.
Yeah, and then but she gets up and she
shakes it off.
I thought, I was like, yeah, she's dead. And then when she got up and she shook it off, I was like, oh, okay. And as a person who, I've played the PS4 game and May dies in that.
Yes.
So I thought, oh, well, if they kill her here, it won't be as surprising or it won't be as sad. I thought it absolutely was. Because she starts feeling the effects.
Yeah.
And she's bleeding. And then she tells him, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm just like,
well, she says, with great power, there comes the actual original line from the comics. With great power, there must come great responsibility or whatever. But yeah. Which I wasn't expecting at all. I was like,
then she dies. And then he goes back and he's like, he disappears.
He disappears. J. Jonah gets his footage. He's outside as all this is happening. All the villains leave, all the destruction, the chaos, and May being dead.
Yep. And then you see Zendaya or MJ and Ned
at his grandma's
sling ring, and he's just trying. He's like, and he's in his grandma's house, apartment, place, and he's like, Peter Parker. And then all you see is,
I just want to see because they, as that happened, there's also the part where he's in the rain on the roof, seeing a huge blown up news report from J. Jonah Jameson, who's like, God help us all, and he's just wrecked emotionally. So they know their friend is distraught and they want to see him. So like, I wish I could see Peter Parker.
Yeah. So in context, I have now seen this scene, but right after May died, I went outside to go refill drinks because my kids and wife wanted a drink. So I ran outside because I knew I could run through the movie theater. My wife was not going to run through the movie theater because she's pregnant. I was not going to have her run downstairs. Nope. That's a bad way to go. So I ran, got back, and as I'm getting back, Andrew Garfield is coming through the portal and taking his mask off, and I'm like,
right away that it was him.
Yeah.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious with his suit. It's the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. So
yeah, and it's so weird because like I feel bad for him, like as an actor.
I have until now.
Because he's had to deny it this entire time.
He had to do the yeoman's work of having to deny it because he was the one that was asked about for it the most. Obviously.
Yeah, because he has other things that's coming out. Like Tobey Maguire doesn't have crap coming out.
Tobey Maguire's been in a movie since 2014.
Yeah, so like, yeah, he had to deny all that and get like. I thought like if there was one person that wasn't going to be in the movie, I thought Charlie Cox was going to be in it, and I knew Tobey Maguire was going to be in it. I was like, I feel bad. Like if Andrew Garfield's not in this movie and he's being harassed, then I feel really bad. I still kind of feel bad.
He was in like another Sony movie, and they were like, in the comments on YouTube, they're like, "When are you let's see more stuff about Spider-Man, or are you going to be in Spider-Man?"
Yeah, and then they're like, okay. And they do the thing again. I want to see Peter Parker. And then Toby walks through.
Old Toby. Current Toby, not de-aged Toby.
Yeah.
And they have the great dialogue, like, you're Peter Parker, prove it. And Garfield hangs from the ceiling. He shows Brad. It's like, I thought you had spider sense or whatever. He's like, I thought is it effective but not against bread. And then Ned's grandma is like the highlight because it's like, saying in native language, Filipino native language, like, since you're up there, can you get the cobwebs? He's like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, and then of course, like he makes the comment. He's like, why didn't you tell us you were Peter? And Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man's like, yeah, I don't really announce that.
Which is great. Yeah.
And then Toby is just dressed up as Peter, and he's like, why don't you say that you're Spider-Man? He's like, well, that kind of bypasses the entire secret identity thing. And they're like, both him and Andrew are like, we just said the same thing.
Yeah.
And
I just said that.
yeah, like that was good.
And they do the webbing on each other, and they basically the same choreography as they avoid it, which is wonderful, realizing who they are.
Yeah, and then she's like, yeah, will you clean that up?
Yeah, and then like my grandma wants to know if you can clean up that webbing that you both used and made it dirty in here. Like, of course we'll do that. But then it gets real serious, because then they want to go see their Peter from their universe.
Yeah, and it's really, really sad. Like
this is the part that made me cry.
Yeah, Tom Holland's he wants to kill him.
He wants to kill Goblin. He's just out sobbing and discontented on the roof. The best part is that MJ and Ned hug him, and they hold that beat for a bit, and then you see the Spider-Man and the silhouettes, and they come down, and they have this conversation, this wonderful conversation, comparing notes, and they do this through basically the rest of the movie. But this one is the heartfelt one, where they find out about where with great power comes great responsibility comes from, and everybody's trauma, and that's where my thing comes in, where Andrew Garfield talks about his Spider-Man losing Gwen and him being full of rage and not pulling his punches anymore. He doesn't have time for Peter Parker stuff. Andrew Garfield has a lot of things coming out this year that are Oscar bait stuff. But I saw this thing that was like, it seems like he's trying to win the Oscar for playing Spider-Man. And he's pulling it off. I don't like those Amazing Spider-Man movies at all. They're boring to me, and I don't like them. But man, is he ever good at being Spider-Man. He just had the wrong team around him. He needed better coaching and better teammates, clearly.
And yeah, like they're like, with great power comes great responsibility. And he's like, how did you know that? He's like, great. Uncle Ben said it before he died. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, I watched it, and then I've rewatched that scene on YouTube, because like Garth said, he's like, he has not seen the movie, but he's seen so much on YouTube, he's practically seen the movie.
Oh.
So
are you still watching with the spoiler thing up?
Yep, he sure is.
Hilarious. Oh, Garth.
But yeah, like I've watched this scene before, but at the time I was like, yeah. But since then I'm like, well, technically Andrew's Uncle Ben didn't say that. He said it in a roundabout way. He's like, if you have the responsibility to, it's an entire thing. Like, it's not those exact words like it was, but the meaning's still there. And I'm like, man, all three of them lost their Uncle Ben. And
well, I don't think there's not an Uncle Ben in this one.
Yeah. Well, because in Far From Home, you see his suitcase that he has BFP on it, which is Benjamin Franklin Parker.
Why is then skipping forward? Why is there no gravestone where May is next?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I know he's definitely exists. So I've always just assumed that, like, in Civil War, when he talks to Tony, he's like, when you can do the things that I can, and then the bad things happen, it happens because of you.
That was intimated, and that he had an Uncle Ben that sort of gave us that, but it seemed like he really didn't. Yeah.
So
that's how this movie kind of plays that. They kind of retcon that a little, to me, it seems.
Yeah, and then so they go to the lab, and they're doing all the cool science things.
Doing all the science. Andrew Garfield in his lab coat. I don't know where he got a lab coat that fit, but who cares? Like,
and they're talking about their webbing.
Yeah,
and,
we acknowledge this weird Sam Raimi thing about.
Yeah, he's like, what? What's that? He's like, my web shooters. Don't you have that? He's like, no, and he shoots them out of his wrist, and they're like, So you just like make that? He's like, well, I don't like consciously make it. Like it just happens. I don't think about it. It's kind of like breathing. It just happens. And yeah, like they get all the cures ready, and they're like,
Andrew Garfield talking about doing the one for the lizard because he's already done it before. Ned having a nice conversation with Tobey Maguire, talking about his best friend and how he tried to kill him, which Ned then cites like, "Don't worry, Peter, I'll never turn on you and kill you," which is obviously a nod, wink, wink to something that might happen in a future Spider-Man movie, perhaps.
yeah.
We get the thing about, "Hey, Peter, me, him." They do the pointing Spider-Man.
Like, Peter Parker.
No, that doesn't help. Yeah. No, the one next to the the computer. And yeah, and then they basically find out where they are, right? They do the cures, and they're finding out where they are, and they're still sharing experiences from them being Spider-Man. We get the joke about, are you in your suit, or are you gonna go like dressed like a cool youth pastor? And Toby just shows the suit. Yeah, and then we can keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, then they go to the Statue of Liberty.
Well, there's one other thing between that. Peter calls into J. Jonah Jameson's show.
Oh, and
talks about that, he tried his best. It is his fault, basically. And they talk about the Statue of Liberty, where J. Jonah Jameson comes up with the, they're going to deface another national monument, which is hilarious, and I think in the comics. But that was really funny.
But yeah, so they do that, and they go there, and then they're talking about the Avengers, and he's like, "You're a member of the Avengers?" And they're like, "Wait, what is the Avengers?" And he's like, "You don't have the Avengers?"
Yeah, is that a rock band? There's the scene with Andrew cracking Toby's back.
Yep.
And Andrew again talking about kind of his grief, and Toby talking about how, "Hey man, you're amazing." It's like, "No, I'm lame." It's like, "No, you're amazing, man. Just remember." He's like, "I needed to hear that." So it sets this dynamic, because I forget who it is. I think it's Andrew says he never had brothers, and they're not really they're Peter Parkers of different ages, right? And they're kind of brothers bonded together in this, which is
cool. Yeah, because I think Toby is 47.
Yeah.
Andrew's 38.
Yeah, he's a little older.
Tom Holland is 25.
25. Yeah. They talk about the weirdest villains they fought. Toby talks about fighting a black goo from space, and then Tom talks about fighting an alien in space, and then Andrew is self-deprecating. He's like, "I only fought a Russian in a rhino mech suit."
Yeah, he's like, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not cool at all. I wish I could do.
Not cool.
I love it. He is so good in this, and I think there are rumors that are coming out that they're talking to him
about Amazing Spider-Man,
about doing Amazing Spider-Man 3 or doing more Spider-Man properties. I'm like, if you get writers around him that aren't Mark Webb and the other people, and it's not just Amy Pascal or whatever, yeah, please don't do him dirty again.
Like, honestly, this is one of those things where I like the 2 Venom movies. So let the people who are in charge of the Venom movies control, like, Spider-Man 4 or Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like, it's a good system. Now, granted, like...
Well, I mean, I think Andrew and Toby really benefited from the writing and the MCU machine here.
Yes.
And I would hate to have them have to go back to what they were before. Not that they were bad, necessarily. Just this is optimized.
Yeah, and so the 3 villains show up, and I was like thinking the entire time, I'm like, oh, Goblin's not here, and Doc Ock's not here.
Doc Ock's not here.
Because at first I was thinking, oh, well, this is when Venom's going to show up. Like the entire time I thought Venom was going to be in this movie.
How disappointed were you? Well, we'll get to that, because
we'll get to that.
Obviously things are going to happen. Yeah, so they're fighting. They're having some problems, which is where the Avengers line comes in, because they're loners, except for Tom Holland's Peter Parker, who's been part of the Avengers. And then they get the shots where they're jumping off the Statue of Liberty and they're swinging off each other, and cures are starting to get supplied for Lizard and for Sandman. So they're getting back to normal. But Electro is wrecking shop, because he's uber powerful with this new electricity or whatever that he's pulled. from the Stark reactor that he took, from the arc reactor that he took from.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, that's like an entire thing. Like, I love how like they're like, okay, I'll be Peter 1, you be Peter 2, you be Peter 3.
Well, no, because Garfield does. I guess I'm Peter 3, and he puts his hands up. I freaking love Andrew Garfield in this movie. He's so good. He's so good. I love his take on this Spider-Man. And somebody brought it up. They were like, I remember watching this Amazing Spider-Man movies, and people thought he was too cool to be Spider-Man. And somebody said, I was watching something. They were like, no, it was a defense mechanism. He did this on the inside. He felt as he feels and displays in this movie, but he does these things to make himself appear cool. But it's really just his defense mechanism as a self-deprecating Spider-Man. And I was like, okay, that puts things in a new perspective for me a little bit. So I kind of like that now.
But yeah, so they heal most of the people. They
can't heal Electro until
they take the thing
until Doc Ock shows up, and they do that weird. He comes in like he is a villain, but then he grabs the thing off Electro, and they give him the cure.
And like, yeah, so MJ falls off, and you.
Yes, sorry, we forget. Yes,
you get Andrew or Tom Holland goes to save her, and then the glider runs into him, and you're like, well, yeah, now Andrew's gonna do the thing, and like he has this moment, and he's like, and she's like, you okay? He's like, yeah.
He just, there's a lot of catharsis in that. He just relents a bunch of demons that were
and then
demons for him and demons for Andrew Garfield.
And then Doc Ock loses one of the arms.
He does, yes.
And Lizard and Sandman are healed, and they heal Electro.
Yeah, Goblin comes in.
Yeah.
But I think before that, they have the thing about, do they have the thing at this point where Toby meets with Doc Ock, and he's like, Peter, how you've grown up?
Yeah.
Really nice moment, which is great. That was 17 years ago, for Christ's sakes. That's freaking awesome.
Yep. And then
Goblin comes in.
Yeah, Goblin comes in. He's and Tom Holland's gonna stab him real good.
Yeah, they have another brutal fight down at the bottom. Like the Statue of Liberty is effed at this point.
Yeah, the
fields come down. All the scaffolding is gone, and he is down there. And Goblin's like, "Where are your friends to help you?" He's like, "I don't need them to help you because I'm gonna kill you." And he's like, and he does like the good. He does the Emperor good.
Yeah,
like, attaboy. And he just starts wailing, and they do moves from like Spider-Man 4 where he like puts them up in the air and they slams him down with a web. It's
and he's gonna kill him, and then Toby stops him.
Toby stops him. Stopped the glider like he could not stop the glider killing Norman Osborn the first time.
And then Toby gets stabbed.
Now, were you like, oh my god, they just killed Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man? Oh, snap.
I was gonna be like, I watched that and I started getting choked up because I thought, okay, they'll all have their little moment of like their farewell moment. Like I thought Andrews was him catching MJ, and now I'm like, his moment is gonna be him dying. What the crap? And then
just punctuated with dying. His moment was stopping Tom Holland from making a terrible mistake.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh no. And then they heal Norman and he becomes a normal dude. And then the universe is splitting open.
Yeah, Goblin, they get the box back, but they don't realize that there's a Goblin bomb.
Yep, and it blows up.
So it cracks the tenuous restraint that's on the multiverse.
Yep, and then the universe is cracking open, and apparently, like, I didn't notice any of the Easter eggs, but apparently there's Rhino is up there.
Kraven
the Hunter.
I think Scorpion.
Yeah.
Somebody said as well. I think they said somebody with a staff, but they thought that was Kraven, so I'm not sure. But no, when you can't stop movies like I usually do when I watch them at home, it's really hard. And I'm eating, and I'm crying, and I'm not paying attention to stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's like, is there any way to stop it? He's like, no. It's
like, well, Strange punctuates that this is all Peter's fault still. That
yeah.
he caused this.
He's
which
like,
is 80% true.
yeah. He's like, what if everyone forgets me? Will that stop it? He's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, it'll take a minute for me to do the spell. You go say goodbye to everybody.
There's something very poignant in that where he's going to say everybody who loves you, but he says all of us. So he admits that he cares. Despite his cantankerous nature, how he was dangling above the Grand Canyon for 12 hours. He loves Peter Parker. They've been through a lot together. They saved the world together. And he makes that remark earlier about he forgets that Peter's just a kid. He wants to be his mentor, really. And that's kind of like the relationship in the comics, right? They're bound together as well as New York superheroes. And this is one of those things where Strange admits that he cares for Peter as well. And it's highlighted by his selfless act with this.
Yeah, and then so that the spell they go down, he explains to Ned and MJ what's about to happen.
Yep.
And they like have their hug session, and MJ tells him that she loves him, and he's about to say it back. She's like, no, you tell me after this is done.
And come find me when this is done, because otherwise I'll just figure it out again. And then him and Ned do their handshake.
Yep.
Possibly for the last time, which is gut-wrenching. Also, there's the moment with him and the other Spider-Men where he's trying to get out, but he can't get his stuff out. Obviously, they cured Norman, by the way. We forgot about that. Andrew throws him the cure. He gets it. They have that nice moment, a nice catch, nice throw. But they're down there. Toby's fine. He talks about how he's been stabbed before, so that was just a fake out, which was kind of funny, but kind of silly at the same time.
And then as they're walking away, he's like, you're in a lot of pain, aren't you?
Yeah.
He's like, yep.
So, but they're bonded together now too, obviously, and they're like, this is what we do. Them curing people.
Yeah, and like that makes, and then the spell goes off and they all disappear, and now it makes me want to see, because like if Doc Ock is good, is he gonna, and he gets sent back to where he was? Would he have finished the machine?
No, if he gets sent back where he said he was, then he still makes his sacrifice. He's just in a better place prior to that.
Okay, but yeah, like Norman, if he goes back,
stabbed, I think.
Yeah, but he might not, because he might not have engaged Peter.
He might not engage the glider. Depends. Did he get taken right before the glider stabbed him in the stomach? I don't know.
Yeah.
You would like to think that they would have more redemptive potential.
Well, and like Electro gets sent back right before the explosion, so does he still explode since he's a regular dude?
No, well,
and then
Lizard
definitely doesn't die.
I like to think he's just pure electricity.
Yeah, and like,
that's a fun moment, by the way, when he and Matt so this was a big thing, right? The whole idea was that everybody who knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man came through, or the villains that did, basically, and our other Spider-Man. And, they reveal, and he's like, I thought you'd be black. He's like, I'm sorry. Well, it's nothing to be sorry about. Just that's what I thought. So there's a Miles Morales nod in there. But there's the thing like, wait, Max didn't know Peter Parker was Spider-Man. They're like, well, Harry told him. He didn't know what Peter looked like. He knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man.
Right.
So that works. And that was explained to me, and I was like, oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah. And then, of course, like, the Lizard and Sandman, they don't die in their movies. Like, Lizard goes to prison and then is confronted by the weird old dude.
Yeah.
Who then you see in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just, like, chilling out with Harry in prison.
Yeah.
As well, trying to form the Sinister Six. So, like, Lizard's, like, cured in...
Well, that's what Andrew says, right? He cured him before.
Yeah.
And Sandman didn't die, no. The thing about those was that they didn't actually bring back the actors on set, apparently. They just used their voice, and then they reused footage from their old movies when they were themselves.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I guess that's a way to save money on a $200 million movie.
Yeah, and then the movie's rounding up to an end.
So everybody has disappeared, and Peter is by himself now. And we see we get the thing about J. Jonah talking about unmasking. If Spider-Man wasn't a coward, he'd unmask himself in front of everybody, which is classic J. Jonah Jameson. He goes to the donut shop, which is where Peter got the idea of getting Doctor Strange to cast a spell in the first place, and he's going to tell MJ. And there's that thing, there's the fake out, the high from Spider-Man 1, where he thinks MJ's waving at him, but it's really Ned, which is a nice little thing. There's also a thing, by the way, going back, is something I read. When May gets hit by the glider, she talks about being knocked on your ass. She was knocked on her ass. And that's the first line that she says to Uncle Ben in the 2002 Spider-Man as well, I think. So people could intimate that she was going to do the great power, great responsibility line. Just wanted to throw that in there. Yeah, so they do the thing, and Peter has his speech prepared, or he's trying to give it, and he recognizes that both he and both MJ and Ned got into MIT, realizes that their lives are better off without him, especially as he sees the cut on her head and asks how it feels. So he decides to forego that plan and do the lone wolf run of being Spider-Man.
Yeah, and then he's at May's grave.
Yeah,
and
they have that line from Game, right? You help one person, you help everyone, or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
And Happy's like, how did you know her? He's like, through Spider-Man. He's like, okay. And so, like, now I'm wondering, like, so all the Avengers know who Spider-Man is, but they don't know who Peter Parker is. He's the only one that has a secret identity that maintains.
Yes.
That's pretty neat.
It's cool. It makes him wholly unique in this universe, which is great.
Yep. And then he constructs the classic Spider-Man.
Oh my God. His life is crap. He lives in a crappy apartment. He has to get his GED. Peter Parker being like, with Tony Stark gone, is probably the smartest person on the planet, maybe.
Yep, maybe him or Shuri.
Him or Shuri, or Reed Richards, as we'll get in a John Watts directed Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah,
which is going to be awesome given how these movies went. He makes the classic Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, and like, so if he's completely forgotten, how can he get in a, like, I know people have been like, if he got in an apartment, he must still have his social. Unless he's just buying.
No, he's still a person with an identity. He's just a person with an identity that nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's smart enough to figure out how to make rent. I would hope.
But yeah, and then it ends, and then we get a mid-credit scene.
Oh God!
It's Eddie at the bar in Mexico, and apparently he has only moved like 15 feet out of his hotel, and he's trying to figure out what the crap is happening in the MCU. And he's like, and then he gets zapped back into the Sonyverse, but leaves a part of the symbiote behind.
He does indeed.
And I'm like, okay. So my prediction was, I thought, like, there were 2 points in this movie that I thought Venom was going to show up. So I thought he was going to show up when May was dying, and that.
I thought maybe when Peter was having the spider sense thing.
Yeah, I thought, okay, he'll realize that he's a good dude. He'll pass the symbiote to May, and then it will heal her up, and then part of it will latch on to Peter.
That would have been a choice.
Well, because like as she's dying, I'm like, they wouldn't have killed May twice in the last 3 years. I don't think they would do that, and they did. So yeah, like now, like he just disappears, but he leaves part of the symbiote behind. So it's gonna attach to Peter at some point. We're gonna get the black suit saga.
Do you think So I was listening to somebody that said you can't do Black Suit Spider-Man and Venom in one movie, as was sort of evidenced in Spider-Man 3. Very, very clearly. Do you think we get like a whole movie with him as Black Suit Spider-Man?
I think we'll get in a movie where it attaches to him midway through, and then he goes the entire rest of the movie with the black suit, and then maybe at the end of it,
at the end.
Yep, and then or maybe he keeps it, and at the beginning of the second movie or the third movie or whatever, that's when he rips it off, when he realizes it's adjusting his personality. And then
Maybe they'll do the thing in the comics where Flash Thompson is a
Agent Venom.
Yeah, maybe
So,
maybe he'll be in the Marines or whatever and get injured. He's the symbiote. And he'll be part of a cool program or something. Maybe that will help inspire Oscorp to be created.
yeah, like I saw a post that was like when Peter goes to college and his professor is Kirk Connors and they're learning about Otto Octavius and Harry Osborn is his roommate, how he feels, and he's like, it's Tom Holland just freaking out. And you're like, yep. And then the end credit scene is like a trailer to Doctor Strange 2. And a thing happened in that trailer that, like, I know a lot of people have been like, oh, they won't ever reference What If in the MCU. Strange Supreme is there, and he's probably super pissed off that, because it looks like our Strange is about to marry, what's her face?
Christine. Yeah.
Christine, yeah. And I guarantee he's going to be really mad about it. He's like, this guy, all he had to do was sacrifice his hands and he gets to be with the girl. I had to absorb all the energy in my universe and I still didn't get to save the girl.
And my penance was I had to watch Ultron and Killmonger in this micro universe for like all my existence. That's the debt I have to pay.
Yeah.
That sucks. I was very happy Mordo was coming back. That was the thing that got me. I was like, hey, Mordo's back. I've been waiting for 5 years on that promise after that he takes Pangborn's magic. I was like,
yeah,
Mordo come back.
Honestly, that's a person who I knew he was going to be in this movie, but I thought, oh, they're not going to do what, and now that they're introducing Valentina is Lady Hydra in the comics, so they may not do maybe he won't become the Baron. But because we already got Zemo with that title, I guess.
Yeah.
Still kicking. So, but he could be a member of the Dark Avengers.
Could be.
Yep. And yeah, this is going to be.
And they reference Westview.
Yep.
Which was neat. Because of the Strange Supreme reveal, I guess Wanda's not going to be like the bad as people anticipated. I think this is a movie where the Mephisto hype will be super high. I know Strange Supreme's in it, but I would not be surprised if there's some sort of Mephisto reference.
Honestly, so here's my prediction for the movie now that we've seen the trailer, is I think Strange Supreme will realize, hey, this guy's got his witch friend, so he'll go to Westview and bring Agatha. Because, or
where does the Agatha show clock in for that?
Yeah, I have no idea if it's going to be a prequel to WandaVision or a sequel to WandaVision. Because it could be her entire life getting up to that moment, which that would be cool. Because that's
we got a little snippet at the beginning of her.
Yeah, because that's what 500-600 years. Whenever the Salem witch trials was.
No, it's like 300 to 400 years.
Okay. But yeah, even in 400 years, a show that wraps through the history of the MCU without actually having to go through all of that, I'd be cool with that. But if or I think Strange Supreme will team up with Mordo, so it's a 2-on-2 thing because Mordo does say.
Well, I mean, come on.
Because Mordo does say the greatest threat in our universe is you.
That was a great line. I was so excited. I was like, sweet. I was all happy about it. And it's Sam Raimi. So Sam Raimi gets to come off the heels of a Spider-Man movie that a lot of people say are better than any of his Spider-Man movies. Bringing Tobey Maguire back, and now he gets his own shot at an MCU character. So
I wonder, do you think there's anyone that we didn't see that got flashed into the world that we just don't know about? Do you think
from the crappy spell? No,
yeah,
that's everybody who knows Peter. Well, I mean Gwen.
Yeah. So do you think Gwen got flashed into the world? Do you think
Dennis Leary in the world?
Yeah. Do you think James Franco is in the world? Do you think Dane DeHaan was in the world for a little bit?
I bet Dane DeHaan is in the world.
Do you think
hold on. This is the most critical thing. It's Paul Giamatti's Rhino in the world.
Well, because I don't think he knew, though, did he?
Okay, fair. You're right. I guess he.
But then I'm like,
Damn it.
was Topher Grace's Eddie Brock? Like, I'm okay with it not being Topher Grace's Venom, but that moment, like that he realizes, hey, it's Peter up in the church cathedral. If he got snapped or brought in from that moment, and he's just like a regular dude, and he's like, what the crap is happening here?
Kirsten Dunst.
Yep.
MJ.
Yep. And then, of course, there's like all the Spider-Verse characters because they all know Peter.
Working at the Daily Beagle.
Yep.
Peter Porker.
Yep. And then Noir or all of them. Like Miles knows that Peter is Spider-Man. So are we going to see into whatever after the Spider-Verse or whatever this next movie is are we going to see a scene where they flash into live action for a moment as cartoons?
Yeah.
And flashback.
Perhaps. I don't know what's maybe not. I don't know if Sony wants to play around with that. I think they want to keep that wholly unique to what made Spider-Verse all
yeah, it's
successful in the first place.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Like I'm excited. I love this movie. It's so good.
I can't wait. I think we're gonna go see it again over the Christmas break. I'm so happy with it. I got so emotional. Like I said, it is definitely, you can say what you want about it being the best Spider-Man movie. I think Spider-Verse is better as a movie and does a lot with a little bit. And this had 7 movies previous to it that it built off of.
Yeah.
But you can't tell me it's not the one that makes you feel the most. I don't know how you don't say that.
And then, of course, there's things like this movie, like obviously, like everyone in the universe, at least in America, saw this movie this weekend because it made 260.
It's the second highest opening ever.
Yeah,
and it didn't open in China.
Yeah, and like it's $260 million domestically in the middle of a pandemic. Like
it's like 560 worldwide, I think.
Worldwide, yeah.
And again, without China.
Yeah, and there's other countries that haven't opened yet. Like, so this movie, I think, will reach $1 billion. I don't think it will go much higher than that because China's not gonna get it released.
Yeah, it's not gonna get it
because
I think it'll get close to. I think it'll beat Far From Home. I think.
Yeah, which
I think it'll be the highest grossing Spider-Man movie for sure.
Yeah, because right now I think the highest grossing Spider-Man movie isn't even a Spider-Man movie, right? It's Venom. At almost 900 million.
No, Far From Home made over $1 billion.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Far From Home.
Okay.
Spider-Man 3, I think, adjusted for inflation, actually is the most. But overall, it's Far From Home. What did Garth say? You're looking.
He said, not everyone came through, as we saw in the purple figures. So we may have seen all the people who squeaked through. And then he said, I didn't. I can't get out to a theater.
I feel so bad for Garth. Garth, if I could legally film the theater experience and show you the entire movie, I would, buddy. I would. I would beam it into your head directly if I could. I promise you that.
So see, that's the reason why what you do is you, I don't know what kind of phone you have.
I have an LG.
Okay.
LG 8 Thin Q.
So what you do is you take your MacBook to the theater with you. You book an entire theater to yourself, and then you bring your MacBook, and then you hotspot it, and then you open Skype and let Garth be on Skype.
Okay. I could do that. Did you ever see that Family Guy where they're going to the theater like, we got our drinks from home, our snacks from home, we got our blankets, we got our laptop, and Braveheart. And I forget what they're trying. I think it's like The Artist or something. I don't remember. But it's bringing all your stuff from home.
Yep. But yeah, like I really like the movie. I'm really excited for Doctor Strange 2 now.
Will this be the most enjoyable MCU experience post Endgame.
I think so. Like, I know someone commented earlier. Do we think we'll see, like, just to make, because I didn't bring the comment up because we were talking in the middle of Hawkeye, so I didn't want to bring up a Spider-Man spoiler while we're.
Well,
It was a random person. It wasn't Garth. So they asked, "Do you think any reference to Spider-Man will be in Hawkeye?"
No.
And I think the only one would be if we see Daredevil, or we hear about Daredevil.
I mean, they've done the Rogers musical thing crossed over, the thing with the Statue of Liberty crossed over. I don't think they can make a reference. They can't make a reference to Spider-Man. Nobody knows who he is.
Well, they could make a reference to the Statue of Liberty, maybe like the shield fallen.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know, because if this is before that, then this is within only tomorrow's Christmas for them, right? Or so, and if Elena's like, I want to go see the
Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, so unless this happened like, and I don't think like, I think that this movie probably takes place in like January or February, because normally colleges don't send stuff out in December. But I know at one point we do see Halloween.
Yeah.
So it could be around Christmas, which means if it's around Christmas, then it does take place at the same time as Hawkeye. So we could see the reference.
Make a reference about the Statue of Liberty getting destroyed.
Yeah, so we could get that reference potentially.
I understood that reference.
Yep. But yeah,
so where did you rank this among Spider-Man movies?
I said it was my favorite, but I didn't. I would have to watch it again because of recency bias to see if it's the best.
It's my second favorite. I think it's the third best one.
And Garth said, "Don't bootleg for me. I don't want to feel that guilt." And then
no, your name will be left out of it.
Yeah, and then he said, "Spider-Man ended at Christmas with him swinging around New York. So what if he just swings overhead and Hawkeye sees him and says, 'Oh, there's Spidey.'"
Well, we don't know if it was just snowy. Technically, there's nothing. I don't remember there being something in his swinging that indicated it was Christmas.
Yeah.
Again, I've only watched it the one time.
And also, like, it could be, like New York's pretty big. So, like, realistically, it's so weird that superheroes in comics run into each other all the time.
It's so weird how often that the Netflix people ran into each other, considering the neighborhoods that they frequented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I hope that doesn't happen.
No, I don't think there's going to be a Spider-Man reference at the end of Hawkeye. Not at all.
But yeah, so yeah, let's wrap this thing up. We've been going for 2 hours.
I talk about this movie all day, honestly.
Yep. But all right, spoilers are done. We're done with all that. Hey, Robert, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me to talk. This is catharsis for me. Like I said, I've just been watching Spider-Man reviews. I want to go see it again. My wife is interested in seeing it again. And I just wanted to talk about it. I was going to, somebody didn't invite me directly, but there was like an opening call for like doing another podcast and talking about it. And I was like, no, we talk about it here first. After this, then whatever. But this is where I talk about it first. That's the bed that I laid in happily. But I really needed to talk about it. So thank you for giving me a platform to do so.
Yeah, but yeah, so this has been good. I'm glad to have we may try and film something next week sometime.
Yeah, we could probably do it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, that will work. But yeah, and then that will be the last show of the year. And
get to talk about Hawkeye.
Yep, and then actually, and if we do it on Thursday, then we can talk first episode of Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, you're right. I was gonna say we could talk about expectations for Boba Fett, but there will already be an episode out.
Yes, so that might be good. All right. So, Robert, do you have anything you want to plug?
Nope. Facebook, Robert Kastner. As we sort of mentioned, I have some additional trivia things for the end of the season coming up until Still in the TM Geek tournament. That probably won't be finished till next year, obviously, at this point. But, I got those things coming out, have this podcast, still working on my other podcast. It's really been on the back burner as I've been phoned in on trivia stuff, but trying to get that underway. But just keep supporting TMG Entertainment, keep supporting the show, Garth especially, but anybody else who wants to watch it. I was looking through our sometimes I look at our views, and I saw like an old episode had more views than our Thomas Harper episode. And I was like, what was it about this episode that has like 50 views? I'm not sure. I really wish I knew. Yeah. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe I'll go back here real quick as you're doing your thing, and I'll try to remember which one it was. But just keep supporting us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at ColtonRoberts8, or you can follow the show at SuperNova_show. Yeah, the show was good. We got one more for the end of the year. We got the Hawkeye season finale tomorrow / less than 6 hours for us Eastern people. And yeah, this is gonna be good. Yeah, and then Book of Boba Fett. I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited for Book of Boba Fett, which is something I would not have said like 2 years ago.
Our episode 42 has 44 views on it, which would have been what, Hawkeye? No, we wouldn't even done Hawkeye. I don't know what we did on that episode, but 42nd episode. That's the main draw right now. And I'm still trying to figure out why. But I'm not going to question it. It's just a curiosity more than anything.
Yeah, I'm gonna look and see what it was.
Okay. I appreciate you doing that. I'm just saying that it has 16 more views than our Thomas Harper episode, which I didn't think would be the case. I also haven't gone back and see what our Rue and Collins episode got or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was just Eternals non-spoiler review and Disney Plus Day, and then NFL, and then movie trivia.
Ah.
So I don't know if that's the
Good for us. We did it.
That's right. But yeah, this was good. Thank you, Robert, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All righty, and then Garth's got another comment. He's like, so Garth said, it said Christmas in the window where MJ worked. I joked that it's the opposite of It's a Wonderful Life. He's not back from existing.
Yeah.
He's forgotten by everyone. So Doctor Strange is Clarence. And then he was like, please read my last comment for Robert. He may like it.
I do appreciate that. And yes, I didn't, again, I did not get a chance to go through screenshots of stuff and notice things. So there are things I definitely missed. I do know the outline of how the movie goes beat to beat, but the special stuff that really people can sleuth into. No.
Yep. And all right, well, let's call this a day.
Absolutely.
And, all right, thank you over there, the TMG universe, and those of you that came and watched it from my Facebook. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Garth.
We're signing out. Thank you, Garth.
Don't forget to tip your virtual waitresses, everyone.